All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a lovely Tuesday evening. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks to my folks, Bumblebee, Abby71, and everyone who has helped to get us to 7.1k likes on TikTok. Thank you very much for your support. I really do appreciate it. All right, so it's a replay day. That means that we're not coming on camera, and I'll please ask that we power tap and like and share the live, okay, so that we can get on the FYP. Also, click on the outer icon above my image and join the team. If you're already a member of the team, please drop a heart to me, drop a gift. Let's try and push the live together to the FYP. Today we are going to our mother site, Yorùbá women site. So the conversation is about them. Of course, it's a replay. So what that means basically is that we're listening to a conversation we had a while back on this matter, and we'll get to discuss it much later. All right. For folks on YouTube and Facebook, thanks for being here. Please like the live and also share with others so that we can have other people join the live stream. Thank you very, very much. Okay. Yorùbá women, Madam Tinubu, and the reality of slave trade. So it's a two-part. Excuse me, please. I'm going to respond to you on YouTube in a bit. My response. Yeah, so it's a two-part session, so to speak. I'm going to play two videos, okay, but it's about the same thing, Yorùbá women. I'll just read the introduction, then I'm going to get us into it. So to respond to Blessed on YouTube, so in order to contribute, because on YouTube, I think the best way would be to call in on Telegram. So what I'll advise is you could just send a message on Telegram that you want to call in, and then you'll be told to call in, and then you can call in. So we'll be able to patch you through to the others, watching the live. I think that's the best way. So that way people will be able to hear you. The best way is to be on TikTok actually, but if we can't be on TikTok, that's okay. We can do Telegram. So just call Busui Oris on Telegram. And then once you do so, send a message first. Send a message and then down. Tabatawa downtown. I will not have you call in, so that way people will be able to hear what you have to say. And I think it should be cool to have you share your thoughts as well. Thank you very, very much. All right, that's the folks on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter. Those who can't be on TikTok for one reason or the other, you can call in on Telegram. But again, please send a message first, and then you'll be told when to call in. Thank you very much for your understanding. All right. So, I joined the TikTok. Can you restrict to that because it's putting on an image rather than a video? I'm not coming on camera, so we're going to need all the help we can get. Please power tap and also share the live. Again, if you're on TikTok, please click on the outer icon above my image and join the team. If you remember already, just drop a heart to me. Let's drop gifts. Let's try and push the live to the FYP together. For folks on YouTube and Facebook, please like and share. It's a delight to have you join us today. All right. So today we're discussing Yorùbá women, Madam Tinubu, and the reality of slavery. Like I said, we're going to play two videos. One is a bit shorter, and that one, I'm saying that because if you notice that there's a gap, it's because we're going on to the other video. But I'm going to just read one description, and then we can get started. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So this, of course, is from one of the videos on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Busui Oris, and you may want to check it out later. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy the content we have up there. The shift in social media discourse has revealed a powerful reality where Yorùbá women are actively dismantling the tired stereotypes used by certain groups to project a false sense of superiority. This reclamation of identity is rooted in a history that stretches from the sacred palace chambers of old to the high-stakes world of modern commerce. Our women have always been the steel in the spine of our civilization, proving through their resilience that they are the primary molders and shapers of our collective character. The legacy of leadership stretches back to the era of queen regnants like Luwu Gbagida of Ile-Ife, Opopo of Ondo, and Orompoto of Oyo, who proved that the crown knows no gender when it comes to military prowess. They paved the way for modern icons like Funmilayo Ransome Kuti and Eforoye Tinubu, the first Iyalode of Igbaland. The strength of our culture is further solidified by the political genius of Alimoto Pelewura and Abibatu Mogaji, who turned market commerce into a force that colonial powers could not ignore, as well as the democratic sacrifice of Kudirat Abiola. Recent attempts by outsiders to deconstruct our heroes like Madam Tinubu based on modern moral lenses are being met with firm resistance. While some point to our involvement in the trade of that era as a reason to pull down our statues, they fail to recognize that judging the past by today's yardstick would leave every nation without a single hero or role model. History is a human reality where no one was perfect, and discarding our forebears because they operated within the acceptable norms of their time and that threatens the very foundation of our heritage. The discussion of slavery as the black and white matter often misses important nuances. Slavery was a human reality and was acceptable at the time. If we want heroes who never did anything wrong, we would be left with nothing because no one was perfect. Consider men like Seriki Williams Abbas, who was once a slave himself but went into slave trade after gaining his freedom because it was the social norm of his era. It is one thing to be wicked and another to operate within the acceptable standards of your time. While the transatlantic slave trade has come under scrutiny, very little is known or discussed about the trans-Saharan slave trade and the reality of slavery in the Arab world. Although slavery was terrible everywhere, there was something quite different about the way it was practiced in Yorùbá land. Our system allowed for upward social mobility where a slave could become a noble and their children could even become kings. In our philosophy, we are expected to be fair to people regardless of their station in life. This doesn't mean slavery was great, but it adds a layer to understanding the Yorùbá reality. It is now a matter of honor for Yorùbá men and women to rise in support of our mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters. Looking away while your women are being insulted or stereotyped is no longer an option for anyone who values the future of the race. We must protect the image and worth of the Yorùbá woman with the same ferocity that they have used to protect our heritage for centuries. When we honor our women, we are honoring the very source of our civilization and ensuring that the next generation grows up in a culture that respects its own foundation. This is Yorùbá Women, Madam Tinubu, and the reality of slavery. Enjoy. I want to thank our women, Yorùbá women, who apparently have had enough of this shenanigans from people just insulting them and degrading them and disparaging their efforts and saying all kinds of things about Yorùbá people and then particularly about Yorùbá women. I just want to say something to those who are still on the fence in the name of whatever movement they belong to. Before you identify as anything, you were born in a particular place. You were born in a particular, with a particular identity, okay? Even before your faith, you have your ethnic identity because that comes with birth, right? Ancestry and all those things. Unless, of course, you're trying to naturalize. All of that to say that it's important for us to understand why people are pushing back. They are not doing so because they hate anybody. They're pushing back because they've had enough of the disrespect. And so when they do this, hopefully we're not going to have so many people going to meet them and saying things like, oh, it doesn't really matter now. And there was a video I saw earlier today from people, of course, who are always using words like Yorùbá women are dirty. By the way, all these things that we've come to normalize, all these stereotypes and insulting narratives that we've come to accept as jokes and bants, we've got to stop. Even if you think you can take it, you have to understand what that thing means over time. Over time, it becomes like the identity of the people. For instance, I was talking about attending a conference a while back, and there was an Igbo man who's actually very rich, and he came to speak at the conference. And Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. This man got to a point. He said, "Yoruba people were cowards." I was looking at it sounded to me like a clown, because he actually said that in front of everybody before he caught himself. He didn't know how to stop himself, because I already said it. Now, if people are allowed to say things like that, and so I can't saw it's just something that everybody says, like, oh, Igbos like this, outside like this, Yoruba like this. It's just banned. What I have noticed in my experience is young Yoruba, particularly, just young ones, young people in the teens, in the 20s, actually now acting like those things are real. And like, why are you acting that way? Why are you acting as though you can't really speak your mind and be bold and stuff? Why are you cowering? Why are you panting? It's because they've come to internalize those narratives, and it's becoming their reality, even though that was a stereotype. And to be clear, there's nothing like cowardice in Yoruba, because people that call you cowards, Yoruba people dealt with them, especially during the war. All right, so maybe it was too much, so they decided to coin that phrase of cowardice. All I'm saying is that it's the same thing with Yoruba women are dirty. And then you look through the dirty cities and spaces in Nigeria, they even have Yoruba cities at the top of the list. Everybody can do better. Even Yoruba language can do better, can become cleaner. But you look at the list of dirty places, it's the people who are insulting you that actually have their cities ranking first, second, like they're at the top there. So it's more projection than reality. They are projecting to you their own reality, and you are imbibing it in them of jokes, and before you know it, you are beginning to act it out, which is why I said it's important that people are actually pushing back against this narrative. Yoruba women, I want to start with them today, with you, because you are mothers, you are wives, you are sisters, you are aunts, you are grandmoms, you are everything to us, and you can't have a culture without the women. And if you allow the women to be disparaged and just say they're dirty, and that's the funny thing, every skit, I'm seeing a lot of skits. These things make people bring out a lot of things, right? Different skits, STDs, and I'm like, when we look around our cities, it's people from your place that are actually, doing the whole red light district kind of thing. So why are you projecting on Yoruba women? So it's important for Yoruba women to speak up, but Yoruba men should also support them. This thing where a woman says, "I've had enough of the disrespect," and then you now go online because you are Voltron, defender of whichever universe you think you belong to, and now go to tell them that it's enough. It's not enough. So let people just do what they have to do, and hopefully this is not going to happen again. But if it happens again, I'm sure the women will be ready to respond to them. Somebody sent me a video earlier today, and I felt maybe we should start with that video as we get into the news. It's not by ethnicity, but it's something quite interesting. Those who insult you, this is what someone from their side decided to explain to us that we probably don't know. We've talked about this before, but it's important that we're listening to somebody from that space. Take a listen, please.
Igbos were the last people to recognize the right of inheritance for a woman and girl child. And it took the decision of the Nigerian Supreme Court decided lead judgment was given by Justice Vivos of the Supreme Court, the Yoruba judge. Now let me tell you something, because you people forget a case that started in Onisha. In inheritance, they excluded the girls, said that the girls had no right because they were girls. The case came to the High Court of Anambra State, presided over by Igbo judges. So those Igbo judges recognized the Igbo custom and told the woman, sorry, you're a girl, and madam, you're a woman. Girls and women don't inherit according to the custom of Igbo people. An Igbo judge accepted the Igbo custom. So the woman went on appeal, Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal had Igbo judge there too, two Igbo judges. The two Igbo judges convinced the non-Igbo judges that this is the custom of the Igbos. That women don't inherit anything. It is our custom, our rule. So Court of Appeal decided against the woman. The woman went to the Supreme Court. And when he got to the Supreme Court, the case landed on the desk of a Yorùbá judge. The Yorùbá judge was looking at the constitution. He was not looking at any custom. He was not supposed to look at custom. A custom is useless if it denies you rights. Before any custom can be accepted, it must pass the test of validity. It must not be repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. A custom cannot be upheld if it is inconsistent with natural justice, equity, and good conscience. So a custom that denies a girl child inheritance is inconsistent with natural justice, equity, and good conscience. Of the Constitution that says that no law shall be applied in such a manner to favor one gender over the other gender. It is in our Constitution. But these Igbo judges chose custom, Igbo custom, over the rule of natural justice, equity, and good conscience. If not because of a Yoruba judge at the Supreme Court, Igbo women will not have inheritance rights today in Nigeria. So it was good that the Igbos did not have their own country. If they had their own country, that their custom will be the constitution and women will have nothing.
My heart goes out to all the women from Igbo land, or in Igbo land. So if it's the Nigerian courts that are now determining the rights of women to inherit property and in a particular area, and that area is the one telling Yoruba women what it means to be a woman, you know, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful. I mean, we're Yoruba. We know how properties are shared as far as inheritance is concerned. Even without a will, you'll have, there are different things. There's a digi, there's a oriojori. In other words, they could divide the inheritance based on the number of women, the wives, or to each child. Oriojori means that none is greater than the other, male or female. Everybody gets a piece of the pie. And that did not start last year, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It's been like that for a long time. A Yoruba woman is able to have access to inheritance in her own place. Whereas the person who it took, I don't want to say Yoruba judge, let me just say Nigerian court, to make that work for them. They are the ones telling you how you should be behaving and what it means to be a woman, and that you are less. Meanwhile, they are coming from a place. Have you noticed that when you talk about feminism in Nigeria, there's a particular ethnicity that is more represented than others? It's almost disproportionate, and they are always angry. And I used to have a problem with that, but when I listened to them speak, I stopped having any problem because I understood exactly where they were coming from. If they have to just, go through this in recent times, that means that they've been they've been, what's the word, enduring a lot of stuff. Today, I'm just talking generally about what I saw online in terms of what's happening to what our women are doing to push back on all this terrible rhetoric. And it's quite funny that the person who is pushing the dangerous narrative is the person who is calling you a bigot. It's quite interesting how they've perfected it. But I'm glad that our women are speaking up and they're up to the task. There was a conversation that some people were having on X when they're talking about some movies. I don't want to mention. So I work in the. I'm an artist. I'm a creative person. So I'm very careful with the names of people that they're mentioning because I just have to be careful. And being careful in the sense that I don't think it's an opportunity to attack the persons. I think it's about the idea being propagated. So the idea they were talking about was, there was a time, right, when certain people whose names I will mention were pushing out content and movies that make you people look like unschooled, uneducated. It was funny, but to the point where people just begin to think that actually how people are. Because while of course it's not, you should just laugh it off. Sometimes people also begin to assume that that's the reality, even though you're just exaggerating and making people laugh. Essentially, all of this to range to say that as a Yorùbá person, when you find yourself in a place where your ethnicity is being disparaged, your women are being talked down on, they say that they're dirty, they have STDs. I don't know who did the census or counting that's called that. By the way, I saw one statistics yesterday about that STD thing. Yorùbá women were not the Yorùbá states were not even at the top. There were other states that I won't mention because that's not today's topic, and that's not the purpose of this conversation. I'm just saying, speak up for your people, speak up for your identity. And if the director or the person you're working with, if they can't understand why it is wrong to use Yoruba people as the butt of their jokes, then maybe you should not be working with people like that. It means that for life, you're always going to be walking on eggshells around them when it comes to things that have to do with Yoruba people. Meanwhile, they are fierce about what's theirs. They don't let people play around with any small thing like this. They'll be crying like something's wrong with them. So you might as well, you won't cry because of course you assume that you're sophisticated, but sophistication does not mean that it should be denigrated by people, especially when they are really less than you. All right, having said that, let's get to today's news. All right, before we get on to the second part of the video, I saw something on YouTube. A person, I don't know who the person is talking to, but essentially, I think it's important for us to understand the context of this thing. And thank you very much on TikTok, Greater Me. One of the reasons you have a lot of people from the South is very angry in the name of feminism is that literally until right now, as we're speaking right now, if a woman kills a chicken, she can't eat the gizzard. And that's true. What you wrote in the comment section, it's the truth. They would rather give it to a boy in the house than for a woman to eat the gizzard of a chicken. And something that's ridiculous. If that's your culture, I mean, your culture is your culture. Even though, like the man said in the video we listened to earlier, he took a Yoruba person who doesn't believe in that backward culture to help the women in Igbo land to be able to access inheritance, which is something beautiful, and I'm glad that they can now access it. But to be clear, the reason a lot of people are angry is because you have some really outdated, ridiculous things you do in the name of culture. Every culture needs to evolve, but if, for instance, you don't see any reason for it, that's where the problem is. There's no perfect culture anywhere, but for you to write the nonsense you wrote in the comment section, Sainty, whatever your name is, it shows that you're not really thinking straight. Culture is supposed to be dynamic, okay? You should be able to have stuff. So when you say things like because it is family land, so what? Is your family made up of only men? I'm even a man. Can you imagine me speaking for your sisters as though you are irresponsible? Because you are really irresponsible. So yeah, women have to fight to eat the gizzard of a chicken. It's crazy in 2026, right? And when you talk about the fact that, Yoruba men are marrying, it's actually a very funny thing, the way things happen, considering the fact that there's certain people trying to escape the possibility of drinking water that was used to wash corpses in 2026. And that's not in the past, though. That's still happening. Like, I understand why a lot of your women are feminists. I don't know what kind of feminists. I mean, the definition of feminism to them really is misandry because they're always hating on men and cursing people out because they assume that all men are like you guys. So when you write in the comment section, understand the fact that as you know how to talk rubbish, people know how to respond to you. And since we are still responding before we go to the next video, I want to read you a report because all this nonsense about Yoruba women are dirty. I don't. Number one, my mom is Yoruba, my wife is Yoruba, my sisters are Yoruba, and I don't understand how this thing has traveled so far. And people just assume that it's just a joke. It's not just a joke. Interestingly, the ones who call you dirty are the ones who have that reality. I'm going to read you a news report about a lady called Obioma. We're just talking, right? This is from independent.co.uk. An African woman and her children were kicked off a United Airlines flight after a fellow passenger complained that she had a pungent odor, according to a racial discrimination lawsuit filed against the company. The incident involving the passenger, a white male, happened 2 years ago when Queen Obioma, a Nigerian citizen, and her 2 children were boarding a flight from Houston to San Francisco. The family had flown from Lagos, Nigeria, and were on the second leg of a 3-flight journey to Ontario, Canada. Obioma saw that the other passenger had sat in her assigned seat in the business class cabin. So even at business class, people are still talking about the fact that she was smelly. So as far as documented evidence is concerned, those who call Yoruba women dirty are the one who others are saying. I mean, that one is a joke. This one is reality. Okay. And I've also noticed that a lot of people, when they move to Yoruba land, they tend to live in ghettos, right? Like they live amongst the poorest of the poor, and they have to find a way to make themselves look better than their hosts, and they come up with these ridiculous stereotypes. So let's make it very clear. While we're very cool-headed and we're not fighting, you don't get to write rubbish in the comment section. All right. It's Green Life says that a father is the most irresponsible person they have known. That's okay. I mean, it's all right since you know your father, but you don't know me. You guys are very stupid. You think you can drop narratives and then hide behind some ridiculous words to make people not respond. You are very dumb. It's Green is Life. The name doesn't have sense. You should just write it in Igbo. And then the other one, Saint. Don't insult people and assume that they will not respond to you. There will be responses. You can hug a transformer. You can, hopefully you don't die. But anyhow, you can do all those things, but don't assume that people will not respond. Okay? God bless you. But grow some brain cells. In Jesus' name. Amen. Having responded to those who are still looking for a right to eat chicken gizzard and to stop drinking corpse water and stop being chased out of aeroplanes because they're dirty, we're not going to go to the second part of this video. If you write anything in the comment section again, I'll respond to you. Now I'm just calm. I won't send you away so that you can hear what we have to go and ask your parents at home what those things mean because you guys are badly raised. All right, having responded to that crop of gizzard beggars, let's now go to the second part of today's topic. Yoruba women. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Is Green Life says, why is it that when a Yoruba man marry an Igbo woman, equality is no longer in play? Give me an example. The primary reason your women actually marry a Yoruba man is because of that equality that they can never have at home. And it's a shame. It's a shame they have to travel over 7 rivers and 7 streams to find a man who actually thinks they are woman enough to be respected. It's a shame. It's a shame. Think about it. I don't know whether you're a woman or a man, think about your sister or your mother drinking the water that was used to wash a corpse just because you want to prove that she's not a bad person. You'll be, yes, typing English that doesn't make sense. Creative ballet. Don't ask me a stupid question. If you don't have equality in your place, sort it out. Don't project Yoruba people. God bless you. It's too early to be angry like this, Pele. don't worry. Let's listen to the second part. This one is not about, it's not about your nonsense. It's more about, the greatness of Yoruba people. I'm sure it's going to inspire you one way or another. So that what some of these Yoruba women did centuries ago, maybe sometime in the next 50 years, you and your children will be able to accomplish. God bless you. I wish I was on camera. I'll be able to respond to you very well, because now I'm just chilling. Betrayal attitude is actually something you find amongst your father's people, because you have no ability to actually be trustworthy. Is that okay? God bless you. I'll respond to another thing you say later. Let the smart people listen to the second part of the video, and I'll respond to your tantrum. I know you're a baby, you don't have sense. God bless you. All the same. All right, the rest of us who are here, Ẹkáàbọ. Let us go to the second part of today's session: Yoruba women, Madam Tinubu, and the reality of slavery. Enjoy. There's something here from Kaiser Kunle. It says Yoruba women have always been at the forefront of resistance and power. We're talking a lot about Yoruba women because they've been taking a lot of bashing. You might as well acknowledge some of the greatness, some of the great things they've done. From Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, anti-colonial women's rights icon. By the way, when you hear from Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, the first that comes to your mind, I saw it somewhere, I didn't read it. I didn't bring it to read it here because people always talk about the first woman to drive a car. That's not the greatness of Funmilayo Ransome Kuti. I mean, that's just one of the things she did. She bought a car and she drove a car. Okay, big deal. That's good, but she was a human rights activist. These were people, herself and the Abeokuta Women Association, deposed the king. That's how powerful they were, okay? They changed the structure of society. So it's important to talk about people like that. Madam Tinubu, political and economic force in 19th century Lagos. Somebody sent me a video where someone was talking about Tinubu and said, oh, Tinubu, there's a square named for Tinubu in Lagos, and but she used to sell slaves. And people have image, a statue in different parts of Yoruba land, statue that they should pull those things down because she used to sell slaves. People are stupid. She sold slaves, so what? And this is not to say that it's good to sell slaves, though. She did not sell slaves in 2026. At the time, it was acceptable in society. So yes, there's Tinubu space. So they're talking about the fact that she used to sell slaves. Madam Tinubu sold slaves, big deal. And I'm not saying slave trade is anything cool or anything, but at the time, it was what people did. By the way, you see, there's some conversations people have in America that Nigerians should be very careful. By the way, if you're Yoruba, please be very careful before you get involved in such conversations. All these things they're doing in the US and in the UK where they're pulling down statutes, you can't do it in Nigeria. Because it's as if you are judging the past based on present reality. I am proud of Oyo. I'm an Ife man, but I'm very proud of Oyo. Okay? But you cannot be proud of Oyo without remembering that something happened to the Daomi people. When you hear about empire and the military might, especially when the empire actually expanded through military might and conquest, you have to understand that slavery was part of it was in that mix. So when I see Yoruba people trying to sound British or American, I'm like, why are you going to stop this thing you're about to start? Because we can bring it home. Whatever Madam Tinubu did, she did because that was what was done in that period, and she was successful doing it. Should she have done it if it's now? Of course, she shouldn't do something like that. And by the way, it doesn't mean that it was good at the time, but still terrible. But the world has changed. You cannot judge the past based on today's reality. If you do that, you're just deceiving yourself. You have nothing to learn from the past. Okay? It's just like somebody doing. Imagine someone, for instance, Dangote has a refinery, right? Refining oil. Imagine 100 years down the line, somebody comes along and says, everybody's using clean energy, there's no need for fossil fuel, and they now say Dangote was a terrible person for even daring to refine crude oil when the world needed green energy 100 years from now. If you were alive, if you are still alive at that point, you would tell that person that real way. Because, okay, imagine we don't have Dangote refinery now. How are we going to survive? So somebody comes along 100 years from now and says, "Oh, green energy, clean energy," maybe you don't even need to go anywhere. Your car just moves, just like it's working now. We see it in some countries, driverless cars, electric cars, and everything. And the person is now judging the past based on present reality. The point I'm trying to make is that you cannot judge what happened in the past based on what you're doing right now. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to be talking about, can you call somebody sold slaves? Your father sold slaves. To be honest, people's fathers were slaves, but it's okay. It's part of evolution. We are where we are right now, and I just think that a lot of people are not grounded, particularly those who are always trying to sound westernized. Sigi says that's a wrong example. Please come up and give me a right example. I would love to hear your right example. So Sigi, you know what? I kind of like what's happening. Let me invite Sigi. I'm going to invite you up. Make sure you come up or come and give us the right example. Or you tell us how we should pull down our image. We're not going to pull down our statue. Some people do this thing where they're looking at the past and say, okay, anybody that had anything controversial, anything wrong that they did in the past, pull down their statue. Ha! You have nobody to look up to. That's the truth. You're looking for heroes that were pure, right? Saints. If they had anything they did in the past that was wrong, put on their statue, destroy the memory, don't talk about them again. How many people do you think are going to have in this world to actually talk about it in terms of history? Nobody. You that you're talking, how perfect are you? Thank you, there are no flawless heroes. Again, I'm not saying it was good, but it was what was acceptable at the time. And thank God for William Wilberforce and the Clapham sect, and thank God for the abolition movement, and thank God that slavery was abolished. And now, interestingly, there are people in the world today who are still practicing slavery. It's still going on in Libya. But for some reason, this woke, they call it woke, Abi. I think is weird when you judge the past based on present reality. Again, I'm not saying it's good though to go with selling human beings. So I'm just saying for that particular period of time, it was acceptable. Even there were people that were sold into slavery. There's a particular one. Seriki, what's his surname? I think it's Seriki Williams. As if I can remember, he was sold into slavery in Brazil. Eventually gained freedom and he went into the trade. He began to sell slaves. I was having a conversation with someone about this, and the person found it very weird and said, "How could he do that?" I'm like, it's not good from your perspective, but at the time it was about the survival of the fittest. And in his mind, it was weak, so it was taken. Thank you, Jaglabi. It was weak, so it was taken. Now he's strong, he can take others. That's literally how they moved. Sigi says, Winston Churchill in UK, with all the atrocities he committed, is remembered as a hero. Something told me you're going to mention Churchill. So let me say this, and I'm not speaking for English people, but I think it's something that let me say it this way, and I'm going to I'll use a Nigerian example. So let me say this. Churchill did some terrible things. Churchill did some terrible things, especially in India. But two things. Number one, you cannot tell Indians to see him as a hero, but you cannot tell the English not to see him as one. That's the thing. There's something I can't say in public, so it doesn't look like somebody supporting someone who did terrible thing. But the point is, you cannot tell, which is, you see, you can, oh boy, this our news don't change. You can choose, yes, Obalufon, Seriki William Abbas, that's his name. You can choose not to support him. You can choose not to respect him. But what I see in the West is people telling the English people how to view the people they consider to be the heroes. That's the one I don't get. I can choose not to respect your hero, especially if he did something terrible to me or my people in the past. Even if I understood the context, I can still choose not to take him as a hero. But I can't tell you to stop respecting. That's what they are doing with Awolowo for us now. And this is even somebody who did not do anything wrong to them. This is somebody who actually helped people. A group of people look at him and come up with lies about him and then tell Yoruba people how to relate with their own heroes. You don't have to see him as your hero, but you can't tell me how to perceive him. You get the point? So I think when it comes to that, that is... So people that don't like who is in Churchill, they have a right not to like him. People that consider him to be a hero, especially based on, you know, his work during the World War, I mean, you can't tell them not to see him as a hero. All of that to say that we are not going to remove Tinubu statues. We are not going to stop calling places Tinubu Square, Ita Tinubu, because we are now woke, or we are now in the 21st century. Slavery, and by the way, slavery is not an American kinikon concept. Slavery is a human reality, and it's been like that long before, you know, the whites came. Somebody asked me a question yesterday, sent me a message that were there black people taken outside Africa before transatlantic slave trade? And we say a lot of things in our conversation. One of the things I remembered is we've not said enough about trans-Saharan slave trade. And the reason is, in my opinion, the reason is simple. It's because the West has shown itself as being morally superior to others. Therefore, people have decided to place the West on a pedestal and demand of the West something that they will not even demand of themselves. That's why I think people are always talking about transatlantic slave trade. It was terrible, to be clear. Terrible, inhumane, crazy, right? But because the West has shown has positioned themselves as the morally superior people in the world, that kind of thing, they have the ability to, they put it on the pedestal where they can correct anybody and do all this policing and everything. Therefore, people are questioning them. But the day they begin to question Arabs, how they castrate people, how they made sure that they were mating with the women, but they were castrating the men, how people were dying on the trek to the Middle East. That they would call it was even, I mean, I don't like comparing evils, but Osha Badsha, just as bad, if not worse. But may God help all of us. And if you're a Yoruba person, like I said earlier, let me say it fully. If you're a Yoruba person, and like me, you are proud of Oyo, just know that the Daomi people have a different view of that period of Yoruba history or of world history. They think of that period differently. When we are talking about the greatness of Oyo, they have a different view, and they also have a right to bear that. So if you begin to do all this, let's change the past, let's remove Tinubu, it is where someone says Arabs is another topic. Yes, and they enslaved a lot of children. I think it's even the fact that ikọ̀ gbé kan náà wípé ìgbà náà ṣebí irú ẹ̀ náà làwọn yẹn náà ṣe ní Argentina tán wọ́n ṣe ní Brazil náà, whitening the population. They had a name for that thing, but it's in Portuguese, so it's really hard for me to. They had this thing. I don't know if you've seen this image. There's this image where the woman was. You must have seen. If I find that image, I'm going to show it to you. The woman was praising God. She's black. Her daughter is mulatto, right? And then she's married to a white. Omotonabi is lighter skinned, so to speak. I want to look for that picture and show it to you guys. It's like when people talk about black population in Argentina, you're like, someone bury one more so in Tombale Paoma out breed there. I think it's Ham's Redemption. It's I don't even want to pronounce it. It's Ham's Redemption. I'll just say it in English. The other one, Camille and so let me just show you that picture. The one I was referring to. This one. Right? That's the redemption of Ham. Essentially, Ham is redeemed by whiteness. So the next generation is lighter than the next, and then the next one is lighter than the previous one, and so on and so forth, until you end up with what you see in some parts of Brazil and Argentina. Even though there are blacks in there somewhere in the mix, but and it was intentionally done. It's the same thing that these guys also did in North Africa, Arabs. Arabs. Someone said they also did it in Australia. Yes. That was even crazy. They were taking children away from their parents, similar to what happened in Canada. People have done terrible things in this world, though, but they still celebrate them in their place. Meanwhile, they want to say that we should remove Tinubu. It is well. By the way, Madam Tinubu was so powerful. She was so powerful that even her husband's children took up her name as their surname. Go figure. She had a number of husbands. I mean, she remarried. One husband died, then she had a divorce, and so on and so forth. She was so powerful that they took up that name. Then he mentioned here Alimoto Pelewura, a defender of market women's power. Alimoto Pelewura was leader of Lagos Market Women Association. She worked directly with Herbert Macaulay, and they fought the British to a standstill. She was selling fish in Lagos market. Interesting. Assistant. Actually, Abibatu Mogaji, the mother of the present president. That's why you think about this thing and you're like, what in talking to President Tinubu's mother was a deputy to Alimoto Pelewura when she was Lagos Market Women Association, and she was there in the 1930s, 40s. Yes. And that's why, of course, she also became a Yaloja. That's Mama Abibatu Mogaji. And then Kudrat Abiola, the matter for Nigeria's democracy struggle. Whitey Kubo on YouTube says the Kingdom of Ondo was founded by Queen Pupupu, a woman queen. A woman. I think that's what she meant. Queen Amina of Zaria was the one who conquered most of what is now Hausa land today. It is a shame Hausa women are now subjugated by Sharia. Yeah. I mean, in Yorùbá land we have examples of queens who actually reigned. So there are different types of queens. There is queen consort. There is queen regnant. So what we've had, of course, we have queen consort. Queen consort just means that you are the wife of a king. Queen regnant means that you are the reigning queen. In other words, Queen Elizabeth was queen regnant. So she was Onlowa Lori Oye. No, Moremi was queen consort. Moremi was the wife of a king. But in Ife we had Luwo Gbagida. Her name is Luwo Gbagida, the queen of thank you, Ajibolo. Luwo Gbagida. She reigned in Ife. In Ondo, like she mentioned, we have Pupupu. In Oyo, Oyo also had a female Alafin, or Wrong Potoni. Anyway, the point is, people like that are not the ones that folks who are just coming out of wherever they're coming from are trying to denigrate. You don't have a king's palace or a king's cabinet, right, without a woman. Okay, and she's not merely representing women, she's there as a woman who has to be part of the cabinet. Okay, Yalode. Then you have Yaloja, who is the person in charge of the economy of the state. And this has been a reality for centuries. So it's not today that somebody else come around and say, oh, look at your women, they don't have anything. Even look at your banks today and whatever you're doing, you have all of this to say that if you're Yoruba woman, you are blessed. All women are blessed, but Yoruba women are more blessed. Praise God. All right. She mentioned Queen Amina of Zaria. Yes, she also was very great. Thank you very much, Whitey Kubo. So it's true. Serki Williams, they still have a building in Badagry. Thank you very much for the gifts. Thank you, Abi71. There's a place in Badagry where they used to hold the slaves before, transporting them. Serki Williams was a slave himself, and then he engaged in that business. When you study that man's history, it makes it difficult for you to be black and white about things. Okay, it's like when you study American history as well, it's called that there are blacks who own slaves. And people don't like to talk about it, but it's a reality. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just what it is, Amina Zazal, thank you on TikTok. White Kubo says the Daomi were the first to use the slave trade as an excuse to turn West Africa upside down before the Fulani overtook the medieval trade. We have been enslaving people before that even came on board. Unless, of course, we're talking about the entire region, but we did our own bit as far as slavery is concerned. Also, some Yoruba people say we had no slavery. We did do. We did. You see, there are some things that people say things that they want to try and clean up the past by denying the reality and say, oh, we didn't do. What do you mean we didn't do it? We did. We just don't do it anymore. All right, there are so many things to read here. Adamo Risha says it was a normal thing then. Thank God for technology. It's because we now have machines. The Industrial Revolution is the reason we can speak English and be saying, why did they have slavery? If you have no machines, you will use what they thought. It's either you were a polygamist having multiple children, or you had enough money to employ a lot of people, or you had slavery. And it was a human thing. And it's terrible, to be clear. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that was what worked at the time. And Siggy on TikTok says, but what happened after those statues were destroyed? Government jailed most responsible afterwards. I think the understanding is just that, we can talk about the past and also give grace to our elders. It's different from having wicked people. For instance, Leopold was wicked. But it doesn't mean that I can still force his people to see him as wicked. But based on objective reality, especially from the Congolese perspective, was a wicked person. Wickedness can come up anyhow. You have to see slavery as a system which was present in different parts of the world. So we have to be careful not to have people say things like, and the person who said that thing was not even Yoruba. The person who said, oh, why do people have statues and squares named after Tinubu because he sold slaves? I'm like, so what should we do? If we get to it, we'll have nobody in our past that we can look up to if we're looking for perfect ones. Again, people make mistakes and it's right from being wicked. I don't know how else to say it to balance it, but I hope you get the point. All right, we're going to have, let's have TEA. Good evening, TEA. Hello? Hello, TEA, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Olùkọ́ Ẹkúwájú.
Ẹkáàbọ. Ẹkọjọ́ mẹ́ta.
Ìjọ kan pẹ̀lú. Mo rò pé ìrántí mi ṣábí ẹ̀ Lakísànyà náà ni o.
Mo rántí yín. Tí mo ti rí fọ́tò ọmọ ọ̀pẹ́ yìí ni. Ṣé wà?
Ọ̀rọ̀ Ẹkúwájú. Adúgbò fọlọ́. Mo fẹ́ chip in. N tí mo really feel pé ó really bọ́ọ̀rì àwọn èèyàn ni pé à ń suffer from this thing tó ń pè ní presentism. À ń fojú èní wo àná. So àwọn fojú ẹni wo àná a fi pé bí nǹkan ṣe rí nsìn ló ṣe rí láyé gbà yẹn. So àwọn èèyàn díẹ̀díẹ̀ lórí líyè pé bí nǹkan ṣe rí rè ń gbà yẹn o. So nǹkan tó gbà aṣọ gbà yẹn náà ló ń dá fún. Ṣe báyìí fún wọn, ṣe báyìí fún wọn, ṣe báyìí fún wọn. So other slavery tó happen at the other side of the world bí àwọn European bó ṣe múra wọn lẹ́rú ọmọ má jẹ́ Hollywood wọn portray ẹ̀ mọ́. So anybody bá sọ̀rọ̀ slavery the only picture tó máa come to your face ni black man. So and I think they actually did a very good job lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ yẹn. The only thing tó máa come sí ẹlọ́kàn ni pé black man ni. So kò sẹ́ni tó máa rán ẹ létí pé even the word slavery come from the word Slav ngbà táwọn Ottoman Empire mú àwọn ará bíi lẹ́rú steady. Ó ṣe sọ fún mi kan pé you have to dig deep kó tó rí story gbogbo àwọn ará bíi present day àwọn tó ń gbé nínú present day London Bradford nǹkan kan mọ́ṣẹ́ lọ́mọ àwọn ará Wales lẹ́rú steady. Ó máa dig deep kó tó rí ni tó bá lọ bí àwọn ará Irish àtàwọn ará Scotland pé kí lè tẹ̀ like àwọn ará England pé àwọn people yìí ṣá ìdá fún wa wọ́n mú wa lẹ́rú steady wọ́n tà wá fún àwọn Scandinavian steady ó máa dig deep ní kó tó rí nǹkan táwọn àwọn Nordic people tó wá ń ṣe fún àwọn ará France tó wá ń ṣe fún àwọn ará French ní gbogbo 11-12 àbí tó bá sọ fún yàn sí pé àwọn ará Sweden wọ́n mú ará England lẹ́rú wọn ni ṣòótọ́ ni yes àwọn ará Norway ọ̀nà ń ṣe fún àwọn steady. So mo feel pé nítorí àwọn èèyàn really understand context yẹn pé look tó bá sọ̀rọ̀ slavery gbà I mean and we can always tell even àwa Yorùbá a máa rí pé bá ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ ẹrú kọ́lá àwọn people yìí náà ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ ẹrú because a máa ń dúró pé ọ̀nà ló jìn ẹrú ní bàbá because a mọ̀ pé okay ó kọ̀ one position yẹn lé ní ni o kò kí ń ṣe default nìyẹn in fact ọ̀rọ̀ bá kàn rọ̀gbọ̀n wá ti sọ pé ẹni sùúrù torí bá ṣe bẹ́rù kọ́ o láṣẹ bọ́ ọmọ yẹn àgbà ẹ má tó bí òwe àdó àlẹ́yìn sọ. So nǹkan tí mo tún fẹ́ káwọn èèyàn tún really understand nìyẹn láàrin yẹn pé kọ́ má fojú ẹ̀ ní wo àná nǹkan yẹn popular lánàá ni ìbọn ṣe ń lò gbà nìyẹn. In fact ọjọ́ tí bá rí ìwé yẹn tí bá rórúkọ ẹni yẹn máa mention ẹ̀ fún yín there was even this very popular black man gbà tó gain independence ẹ̀ ní Alabama first thing tó ṣe òun náà lọ rẹ̀ rú ni láti lòun plantation ẹ̀ wọ́n ní bàbá yẹn tún wà so vicious débi pé àwọn òyìnbó mi ṣe tí wọ́n ń kọ́ṣẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀ pé ìwọ tún kí o ìwọ tún burú yàtọ̀ o so màá submit báyìí so olùkọ́ ẹ kú wájú so káwọn èèyàn kọ́ really understand pé kò popular mọ́lẹ̀ ní bọ́ ṣe nílò gbà lánàá nìyẹn and it's just normal.
Ẹ ṣeun. Sorry, I was looking at some things while you were talking. Someone sent me on message, but everything you said, absolutely spot on. Mr. Dungu says, if I'm able to summarize in English, I've forgotten my Yorùbá lessons from 1962. Sorry, sir. For you, I will summarize everything. So here's the point. The idea basically is that we shouldn't judge the past based on today's reality. When it comes to slavery, for the most part, we assume that slavery is synonymous with blacks. And you see it in most of our conversations. When we talk about slavery, people are like, oh, the whites took blacks and they took us as slaves. Blacks took whites as slaves. Or at least let me use the word Africans, enslaved Europeans. Arabs enslaved Europeans and Africans. Europeans enslaved Europeans and Africans. So the idea that it was just European versus African is warped, and I think it's actually a product of Hollywood, just like TEA said. The idea that it was white people that took black, and that's all. There is a lot more to slavery. Asians enslaved Asians. Japanese enslaved the Koreans. The only difference between them, so what you notice is that in our culture, Africans also enslaved Africans. Let me even say it all over again. Africans enslaved Africans, Africans enslaved Europeans. Europeans enslaved Europeans, Europeans enslaved Africans. Arabs enslaved Arabs, Europeans, and Africans. Asians enslaved Asians. So it's not the thing of Europeans versus Africa. So it makes it look as if it's white versus black. The truth of the matter is that it's more complex than that. Even amongst the whites themselves, they enslaved themselves. But we tend to look at things just from the perspective of see what things then do to us. And I think when you even look at your own history and you see what happened within your own space, you're like, wait, this thing it's not, you can say it's not good, but it's not like it's something exclusive to one group and say, oh, let's just curse them out over that. So you look at people who sold slaves in the past and people say, don't call them heroes. What do you mean don't call them heroes? And then he mentioned, and he's very correct, about a black man who got emancipated in the US and then went into, I mean, he had a plantation. So he went ahead and got slaves to work on his plantation. Because that's machinery at the time. I mean, as crude as that may sound, we can speak English like this because of Industrial Revolution. They now have machines to do the work. Before machines, humans had to do it. And the more slaves you had, the more output. Again, it may sound a bit offensive, especially if you're Black American, and I get it, and you're right to feel somehow about it. But it's important to put it in perspective. So the difference, like I wanted to say, with what you see in America and what you see in other parts of the world is that it's difficult to have assimilation primarily because of phenotype. The Koreans mixing with the Japanese, you won't know the difference that much if you're an outsider. There are families in Yorùbá land that got into some of our towns as slaves. In some cases, we know them. But you see, the difference between Yoruba slavery or slavery in Yoruba land and other places is our philosophy. It was not a perfect system, to be clear. I'm not saying that it was, roses and petals. I'm saying you have certain words that tell you exactly what we think of slaves. So, for instance, we have words, statements like onology, eruni baba, which means that no matter how far away, the person you're looking at is a slave, but no matter how far away they are from home, they still have parents. In other words, just like you, they have those who are family to them as well. So you can't just treat them like nothing. They also say Ibiojubi, Bashe Berula Bomo. When it comes to birth, there's no superiority. Everybody is born the same way. So Ibiojubi, Bashe Beru Labomo. There's also the one that says there's a big penalty bere, but the idea basically is that somebody of low estate, including a slave, can become a king. And I have examples in Yoruba where, in fact, I have examples I cannot mention in public, primarily because of the way people understand history on social media. There are examples, powerful people whose mothers were slaves in Yoruba land, but it didn't matter. And the reason is because in Yoruba land, there's something called upward social mobility. Even if you got into the society as a slave, you could move up the ladder. In some other people's spaces, you are forever condemned to being a slave generationally. Even within Nigeria, there are societies like that, where a person who was a slave is forever a slave. It's just so interesting that it's people from those spaces are the ones who want to teach us about civilization as Yoruba people. That's an insult. It's just that we're all in Nigeria, so we can all smile and be happy about it. It is well. All right, thank you for listening to that. We have a couple of people who would like to speak. There's Akadol on TikTok. Good evening, Akadol. If you'd like to contribute on TikTok, please feel free to send your request. For those of us on YouTube who would like to speak, you can send a message on Telegram to Busui Oris, and then we'll see if we can bring you up. Hello, Akadol. Are you there? Hello? Okay, maybe he clicked on that mistakenly. So today's session is going to be short, actually. Tomorrow, we're going to go a bit deeper into some of those things, but I'll just respond to some of the things in the comment section, and then we'll see if, I don't think Akadol is coming up. I think it probably just mistakenly clicked on the request button. Okay. Olumiwa says, slavery in Africa is not the same in other parts of the world. Most of our slaves come from conquest. No, so what we're trying to talk about is not so much about how those slaves, were acquired. Of course, for the most part, it's usually through conquest and also through trade. So people would invade other people's territories and take people a societal construct of slavery. In other words, now that the person is a slave, what does the person have in his future or in their future? Okay. For instance, there's a clown just stopping me in the comment section on YouTube. In that person's culture, if you got in there as Ohu or Oru or Osu, you are forever like that. So generationally, you are a slave. You are condemned to being that. There is no social mobility. The only thing you probably have to be able to speak in public is have money. But as far as societal appreciation for your status is concerned, you are forever a slave. Generationally, your children, your children's children, and it's the reality even today. So maybe that will help you, because I don't know why you're disturbing. I will soon block you. But it's important for you to know, all right? Cultures are different. Again, at this point, I'm not talking about one is better than the other, but clearly one is actually more civilized than the other, unless we're deceiving ourselves. So some people are condemned to being perpetual slaves, okay? And then you go in the United States, for instance, where you have a case of you can actually pass on your slaves to. It happened everywhere, but until emancipation, you couldn't just get yourself free, essentially, unless of course you ran away to the north. But in Yoruba land, the difference is that whilst of course we also used to invade each other's places and get slaves and then you trade, these were the things that this was common all over the world, by the way. It's not a Yoruba thing or American thing, it's a human thing, okay? The difference for us is that now that the slave is part of society, there is possibility of also upper social mobility. In other words, that slave could become something in society. Okay, there are examples, for instance, in Lagos, for instance, a particular person who moved into Lagos and it was actually going to be sold, already been captured, was a slave, was going to be sold, found his way into the palace of the Oba of Lagos, eventually began to serve the king, eventually became a chief in the palace of the Oba of Lagos. All right, and his descendants are in Lagos today, respected as Lagosians, respected as Omonile. Okay, we have examples of people who were taken as slaves and got married to the king, and their children became kings in Yoruba land in different towns, in different cities. And it's not a taboo or something that you can now say, oh, look at that person, the mother is a slave. It doesn't really matter because the person has now been able to move up social ladder, unlike what you have in other places. So I think what separates Yoruba, again, it's not to say that slavery was this perfect system in Yoruba land. There was no bad people. Everybody was just happy being slaves. That's also not true, because I hear people sometimes say things like, oh, there was no slave in Yoruba land. All we had was Iwofa. That's not true. Iwofa is indentured servitude. That's a totally different idea from Eru. And Eru, no matter how many people say things like it was actually cool, nobody here would want to be an Eru. The point is just that if a person got to become that for whatever reason, whether war or whatever reason, for whatever reason, the person had a chance to escape that position or that station in life. It's not like they're condemned to being there for life. And those whose society have that kind of thing, I don't think they should be here disturbing me in the comment section, because to be honest, if in your society you are still practicing outcasts or whatever, I don't think this is the last warning to you, Sha. Green, this is your last warning. You're going to be muted or blocked. Like, you're either here to listen or you find your way out. And the crazy part is this: in Nigeria, it's those who actually are from inferior cultures, primitive mindset, that tend to speak up and try to lecture you on how to run a society. It's quite crazy, because back home, they don't even have the capacity to speak up. They themselves are talking in public, because back home, they're outcasts. It's crazy. And the funny thing is, they would never look for unity back at home. It's when they escape whatever dungeon they are coming out of, they'll not be lecturing you on what to do in the 21st century when your women cannot even eat gizzard. Ordinary gizzard inside chicken. Greater Me says that's why they mass migrate from the south. I mean, that's the reason. They're escaping. All this thing about, oh, you want to marry a woman, who wants to, I can't sorrow. It is well. Just going to read some more things here. Greater Me says they are angry because they brought them from Igala people. So there are also other groups in Nigeria whose name literally means slave. And the thing is, people need to be humble, okay? People need to be humble. I just don't like mentioning ethnicities, because we never mention people on the throw tantrums. You've got to understand your own history, and maybe because people are not being taught their history, rather you have their father sitting them down to tell them, oh, Yoruba people did this to you, Awo did this to you, just raising them to be victims. They've not really been able to appreciate how they became what they are, right? And that thing is always there. See, slavery is more than just the condition of, being denied your freedom and being owned by another. It could also become a mindset where you begin to think like a slave. No matter the opportunities you have in your life, you just think like, and people actually act like slaves, regardless of how long it's been. So I'm trying to be as restrained and measured as possible, but please, Magungi Koje will ask your Yoruba friend what that means. Akadol on TikTok says we reject all wokeism in Yoruba land. Yeah, we can't afford to crucify our forebears because they did something bad at the time. Like I said, there's a difference between wickedness, right, and doing things that were socially acceptable at the time, but no longer acceptable today. You can't judge the past based on present reality. You can't say things like, oh, they are slaves, so we can't really have them as role models. That doesn't make any sense. They didn't do those things because they were wicked. They did those things because that was the norm at the time. And we mentioned earlier about Seriki Williams Abbas. Seriki William Abbas was a slave himself. He got emancipated and then decided to engage in slave trade. But he was a freed slave. That's to tell you that as far as they were concerned, it was a matter of the survival of the fittest. And once you had the capacity to enslave others, you did it. Does that mean it's right? It's not really about right or wrong. It's about understanding context and nuances when it comes to history. So when the person said things like, oh, you're Yoruba people, Madam Tinubu used to sell slaves, and so what? Does that mean slavery is good? Of course it's not good. But these are people who would not even condemn Libya for still selling their brothers as slaves in 2026. It's quite to the past what we're experiencing right now. So yes, it's bad to sell people, but it's bad. But to now go and meet Madam Tinubu in the past and say, okay, I want to change yours. And I saw this thing on Twitter. By the way, I think Yoruba people, young Yoruba people, we let me put it this way: if you're a Yoruba person, you're an adult, you have children, you have nieces, nephews, cousins, we all have work to do, okay? And it's not by getting angry, it's just by teaching people. Because you see, all these American ideas that we are imbibing without really questioning, it's a dangerous thing that people are doing. You will see something trending online, like it happened in the US, and then you want to import that into Yoruba land or into Nigeria and apply it. It's the same reason. I saw a video. I didn't even play it yesterday. Maybe I'll play it one of these days. Someone sent me a video. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Thereabout. A young girl, right? They were talking to her like, would you like to have somebody who is on Yoruba be the governor of Oyo State? She's from Oyo State. And then she was like, oh, I don't mind. Actually, they asked specifically, is it okay for an Igbo person to be the governor of Oyo State? She said, no, yes, it's fine. Anybody from Africa, anybody can even become governor of Oyo State as long as they will do something right for our people. When young people talk like that, they actually think, and I'm glad we went to school, because if we didn't go to school, it could be like say we know anything. When people talk like that, they think they know what they're talking about. For the most part, they are very ignorant, very idealistic, and very, very naive. Okay? In reality, once you understand the concept of ownership, everything changes. When you discover that the world does not think the way you do, and the fact that when you open your doors anyhow, those who take over the place will do with it whatever they want to do. And that's exactly what's happening in Europe today. The reason countries across Western Europe are complaining is because of what I just said. And if you don't, just go and study what's happening in Germany, in France, and the UK. And look at what's happening also in Denmark, in Norway, in Scandinavia, right? In Sweden, Denmark, Norway. How are they pushing back? See, the idea that people used to have in the 1960s, which is what they're now condemning, multiculturalism, became very big in 1964. That idea of multiculturalism doesn't make any sense. The way our fathers did it in Yoruba land is that awala nile, awala nilu, awala nibi. Anybody can come into this space, but what you do is that you either come as a stranger and then we see you as a stranger, so we can even have quarters for you, just earmarked for you. We know you are strangers, or you have a chance to actually become part of us. And it's, maybe I should mention this. There are many families in Yoruba land. There's a question on Facebook. I'll answer your question, Abdul Mumbo. There are many families in Yoruba land whose great-grandparents were not Yoruba people. But you see, Yoruba, you can become Yoruba through ancestry, but the idea of naturalization that we see in the world today is not strange to the Yoruba mind. People also became Yoruba even if they were not born Yoruba. Not like the nonsense they're doing on social media right now, or in Lagos, shouting, we are all from here. It's not by constitution nonsense they're doing. It's not about shouting and throwing tantrums. People don't become Yoruba that way. You can do that for the next 5,000 years. You will still not be Yoruba. I see all the backdoor thing people are trying to do. And my mother's father's great grandbrother's uncle's sister was Yoruba, so I'm also Yoruba. Foul. That's not how to become Yoruba. People actually assimilate. People begin to imbibe the system, our worldview. I mentioned the other day that there are some families in Abeokuta, for instance, who actually got in there as Hausa people. They are Yoruba today. They assimilated. They became, when they think Yoruba. In other words, their worldview is Yoruba. And that happens. So it's just that Nigeria will not allow us to do that again, because we know some people want to use the opportunity to come and steal what they don't have where they come from, which is the fact, just to be clear. A lot of people want all this Nigerian unity because they're trying to actually get something. We're going to get deep into that tomorrow. But let me respond to some of the questions on Facebook. Someone says, please, was there no slavery in Igbo land in those days? There's some questions that people ask. I'll be like, how do you even begin to respond to this? Okay. This kind of question, I know what I want to say. Sometimes I like to read answers like this before people, because we never even talk on this one on the convulse inside comment section. But let me just answer this way. When you say, was there no slavery in Igbo land in those days? Okay, here's the short answer. There was. But more than that, it was a totally different experience from what you could ever imagine. And I'll say it this way. Hopefully, it will come across nicely, because there's no nice way to put it, but I have to find a way that will not be denigrating. So here goes. They don't have unified structures of leadership, right? They have acephalous communities. The highest form of leadership, for the most part, is the leader of the extended family or clan. So they don't have big spaces. There are no towns like that, okay, in Igbo land. And what that means basically is that you become prey to a stronger force, right? So a stronger foe. So many people around at the time, it's two-way. Number one, people came from outside to pick on them. Number two, they also did it amongst themselves. But it's easier for them because there are no concentrated city centers or towns or anything. They're just small hamlets. So when you go in with your full force, it is you know what, I'm trying not to go deep. I hope you can get the message. But yes, there were many slaves in Igbo land, and a lot of them were also taken out of the country. Igbos had much more people in the diaspora than any other ethnicity out of Nigeria. Interestingly, when you compare the numbers of Yoruba slaves, and I'm trying to move away from the Igbo thing, because if I go deep into it, questions like that, let me tell you something. Questions like that, I would like to say it on camera, and I would like to read it out from books, because the answers will infuriate people, particularly Igbos. It will infuriate them, but it's better for them to see me reading those things out, so they will not think I'm making it up. Okay, and then I will tell them the books to read. But the idea of Igbo go and slavery is actually very, very intertwined. Like, it's so crazy. You have to look at things from some people's perspective. Look at it from Benin perspective. Look at it from Ishakiri perspective, from Ijo perspective. There's a book I want to recommend without having to go deep into that question. The book is called Among the Igbos. It was published in 1921 by G.T. Basden. If I remember, the next time we have a live video live stream, I'll respond to that, but I will be reading the answers from the book so that nobody will think I made anything up. And you see, that's the thing. People are not honest with their past, and they have not been able to escape that past. It doesn't matter what education you have, what degrees you have, you still act that way because it's encoded in you. It's in you, like pig milk. So that is I want to say that without having to go deep, but if you read that book I mentioned earlier, you get the answers you want. But slavery was rife. Of course, maybe you should also check out another book you should read is Igbo. I think that one is here. Both are actually here, but I don't like reading audio, as in people just assume that you are making it up. Igbo English French dictionary. Okay. Look for the word Igbo there, and whatever the meaning, then you can work with that. You find a meaning there. That meaning will give you a basis for your study of the reality of slavery in Igbo land. Let me look for the title so I can. Okay, I found it. It was published in 1904. English, Igbo, and French Dictionary by the Fathers of the Holy Ghost, Roman Catholic Mission on Nature, Southern Nigeria, 1904. Look for the entry Igbo. That entry gives you that entry Igbo, or you will see the meaning of the word, and that will probably help you appreciate that. But I don't mind talking about it, maybe, but it will be on camera, so I'll be reading the books. Everybody will see me reading it. Anybody won't vex, I could just tell them, maybe they go read those books. All right. Someone said they don't denigrate other people. Those places you call dungeons are far better than. Sorry guys, let me mute this clown. Anytime you see let me tell you one of the things you know, that when you're talking to a slave, he always compares. I'm better than you. My house is better than you. That person is a slave. For a slave, because he's always looking at his bosses, he has to find people around him that he thinks is better than, in order to find worth in life. So I'm going to mute this clown. Only if I start saying things like Kinikon are better than some Kinikon. This is not Igbo land where you have, better Igbos, original Igbos. I think that's your reality, but not. I'm going to put you on a timer for the next 5 minutes. Hopefully your brain will reset in 5 minutes. God bless you. All right. Mr. Michael Olumola says multiculturalism, believe it or not, that's what Trump is trying to correct in America by these visa restrictions. Yes, sir. Absolutely. And yeah, some people, Nigerians, we don't like it because a lot of us want to travel and so on and so forth. But it is what it is. It's his country and he's thinking about his people first. We may not like it, but as long as, if you're ruling the country, your goal is to take care of the people, which is what we want our politicians in Yoruba land to also understand. Being a politician representing Yoruba land, your primary objective is to take care of your people, then others, the residents. Not when you're pandering and trying to make it look like you're a good Nigerian. Nobody, right, employs, or nobody votes or elects anybody in Yoruba land to take care of others so that we can prove that you're one Nigerian. No governor does it in this country. It's only these Southwest governors. We're not even all, to be fair, but some of our governors sometimes just find a way, always look for a way to pander, which makes absolutely no sense. You can take care of everybody. There's no problem with that. But your primary goal is to your people. And we have to make it very clear. Everybody does the same thing, right? Anambra State was going to employ health workers the other day. They made it very clear, unpublicized it. They wanted people from their state of origin has to be Anambra. Enugu wanted to employ health officials. They didn't only say state of origin. They actually mentioned ward of origin, not local government, ward. And they said you must be able to speak Igbo and their own dialects. For you, a Yoruba person, how do you get a job in that kind of space? Do you have a problem with what they did? No. They're trying to take care of their people, as they should. But you should do the same as a Yoruba politician or elected official. You should do the same. It's about your people first. Doesn't mean you hate others. I mean, are you going to say Anambra State hated others or Enugu State? When they say word of origin, it means that even if you are from Anambra State, you can't get a job in Enugu. Even if you are from one local government, you can't get a job in another local, in that particular place. So whenever we're talking about Yoruba people finding jobs there, of course, how many Yoruba people? I mean, Yoruba people are in the southeast, but not like they are in Yoruba land. So the point I'm trying to make is that the same way they prioritize the people, which I think is pitchy, is the way our elected officials also have to prioritize our people. Doesn't mean you hate others, you take care of others, but your duty is first to your people. All this, we are all one Nigeria. It's only in Yorùbá land that thing works. We are one Nigeria. We'll do well for everybody, but the first thing is take care of your own people. Ademola Omoba says, Egbonwusui, off topic, but how come your hairline still looks fantastic at your age? How old am I? How old am I? Oh, this is why I say at my age. Oh boy. I think I'm the kind of person that older people call young, and younger people don't know I'm old enough to be whatever my age really is. But yeah, how do I have what's your question? How do I have my hairline like this? Hairline looks fantastic. I think it's genes, so that's my dad and my mom. So I got the genes from them. And confession, we are forever young. We have to keep saying it. We are forever young. Okay? At 50, we'll look like we are just trying to clock 30. When we are 60, we now begin to look 30-ish. So yeah. But thank you for that nice stuff. Sounds cool. Even with my beard, it's not really... Anyway, thank God. Thank you very much for that. Let's go on to Obalufonse's Project 2025. It wouldn't Project 2025 in Moyal. I'm still reading comment section here. Greater Me says, and that's why they call us cowards. So see, to be honest, right, the reason our politicians do that is because of our history, okay? So, you know, when people talk about cosmopolitanism, like the book we were reading the other day, and someone was talking about cosmopolitanism in other parts of Nigeria, and I was like, this is a joke. They only talk about cosmopolitanism when they leave their region. In Yorùbá land, cosmopolitanism has been our reality for about 1,000 years, and I am not joking. I'm not even making anything up, okay? You have to go all the way back to our trade with Mali from Ife. And by the time Ife became the center of attraction, it was attracting people from different, attracting, you get the point. Attracting people from different parts of West Africa, okay? So different ethnicities will be in Ife. It's not that we are not used to having different people, it's just that we have a way we structure society according to our own. So what our governors are doing is what our fathers did. What they are missing out on is actually staking that ownership claim, like le daran takama daranle, àwọn ọmọ ìlú, àwọn ará ìlú, àwọn Yorùbá, which is why I like what's happening in recent times. Ondo State was going to actually employ Amotekun. Yorùbá náà ṣe fún ọmọ Yorùbá tó gbédè Yorùbá. That's the mindset because of what our fathers did, and also because of what people like Papa Awo did, where they tried to integrate the region. We have that duty to our people first before we now begin to think of being good to others. And here's the crazy part, like what persons wrote in the comment section. People assume that when you're good like that and kind like that, it's because you're weak. What they don't understand is that they can't act like that because they have not evolved. We act like that based on evolution. And it's not because we are perfect. It's just because where we don't reach, we know, say, this life, there's a way you move. But when you go to places where they say everybody from the other state must vacate their offices here, and they are always very clannish, when they come into your space and you open your doors up, they assume you're stupid. And what you do is at some point, you've got to make it very clear, like, I don't mind still taking care of you, but I'm going to actually let you understand we are not stupid here. Because that's when people start saying things like, we have a right in this place. You have no right. It's a privilege that you will not afford others where you come from. And you have these funny examples where people say things like, oh, but there's 1, 2, 3 person in Guinea-Con governor's cabinet in one part of Nigeria. How about that? When you're mentioning 3, I'm talking about 3,000. So you can't give me like lone examples of just, one person here and there and think that you have said something sensible. So while people evolve, we should be good to everyone. But even Bible says that it should be good to everybody, particularly those of the household of faith. So I got that only. We're still on comment section, are we? Greater me, what you wrote about some people being easy picking, I don't want to go there because, oh my Ribacon. But it's the truth. You are very correct, just to be clear. Thank you. Koboko says the pro-colonial Igbo situation was like the antagonist tribe and Incas in Apocalypto film. Sorry, the protagonist tribe and the Incas in Apocalypto film. Well done. Shey West, are you 50, Prof? No, I'm not 50 yet, though. But I'm saying when I clock 50, I'll look 30. So I'm not 50 yet. I'm in my 40s. And I have to be mentioning 40s because I've heard people say things like, "See you're very young. You're this 30-year-old boys talking." I'm like, we are young, but we are not that young. But we are young. We praise God. Omoba says, we Yorubas need to wake up. These are the same people that insult our land and call it brown roof. Brown roof, I think I've talked about it before. When people call Yoruba land brown, it's really Ibadan. Brown roof. They think it's supposed to be insulting. I don't think that will actually find it very funny. You see, that insult is the person insulting you is acknowledging something he doesn't realize. Is acknowledging abundance. And I'll explain very quickly. You see, number one, all over the world, there are places where you have these old buildings and they're just, kept that way. Heritage, tourism and stuff, which means that we also have to take care of our old structures better. Particularly in areas like Ibadan, where you just have so many brown roofs. It actually shows there's a reason for the mud houses and the brown roofs. And to be clear, when Ibadan was built, and Ibadan is the one they usually call brown roof, when Ibadan was building with corrugated roofing sheets, that of course became brown, it's zinc, became brown over time. The people calling Ibadan brown roof, their fathers and grandfathers were living under thatch roofs. They live under leaves. All right. So when you look at Ibadan, those brown roofs, it's actually a sign of early civilization in terms of building and structures. That's one. So the question is that if that's just in the past, so why don't you just pull everything down and rebuild? Because you want to show that you have, grown up. So here's the thing. We don't have to pull down the building because we have abundance of land. Here's the thing that I find it shocking, that a lot of people find it shocking, particularly Yoruba people. They actually find it shocking that apart from the ocean, and I'm very serious about this, apart from the ocean and some skyscrapers that you find in Lagos, there's really nothing in terms of buildings and stuff in Lagos that you won't find in Ibadan. I grew up in Ibadan. There's nothing. I mean, nothing. There's no kind of structure that you have in Lagos that you will not find in Ibadan. None. The thing is just that because the land is big, all right, people can afford to leave the brown roof, all those old places, and buy land. And the funny thing about Ibadan is that it's an elastic city. That's what I like to describe it. It's an elastic city. It expands. And then, like, if you're living in a particular place, before you know it, you want to buy land somewhere not too far away from where you are, and then you become landlord. Your tenants also. So that's how Ibadan has actually expanded over the years. And so what it means basically is that if you're looking for a place that looks like Ikoyi, you will find Ikeja, you will find Lekki, you will find. And if you're looking for Oje, Bere, Foko, or Jaba, you will find. And I think that's the beauty of the city. You can go from modern to ancient like in 30 minutes. You can even do it if you go from some part of Akobo, you can do it in like 20 minutes or 15. You don't have to pull down those structures because you have land. The people who have to pull down old structures are people who have no land to expand to. And it's not a problem. I mean, there are parts of Nigeria that I've been to personally. They build a house and sell the decking. And then the person builds and sells. That kind of thing has never happened. The only place I see it happen is probably government buildings where you buy floors. But the fact that you build a house, deck it, and sell the decking to another group, and so on and so forth, it doesn't happen in Yoruba land. So the brown roof trope, somebody sent me a video the other time this very fantastic, area view of some estates in Ibadan. I just smiled. I was like, I wish these guys didn't even put it out. Let them keep thinking it's brown. Let them keep thinking it's just one brown roof. There's nothing there. It's a lie. That place is something else. You will find all kinds of things. You will find Abule Egba in Ibadan. I know Ibadan is very big. Ibadan is almost the size of Lagos State, not Lagos, Lagos Eko, the entire state. That's Ikorodu, Ekpe, Badagry. You know what? Let me look for it. I want to mention the exact. Ibadan alone has 11 local governments. It's a very big place. Gbogbo ko Ibadan gan sin ti dìlú báyìí sin. Gbogbo tó máa ń pè lóko Yorùbá àwọn ará Ìbàdàn sọ pé àbí àwọn ọmọ Ìbàdàn ará Ìbàdàn lèmi báyìí. Because àwọn ọmọ ọbẹ̀ wọ́n sọ pé èèyàn nílé Ìbàdàn kò má lóko tó bá jọmọ Ìbàdàn. Give me a second. Let me quickly type something. I'm talking about land mass. I don't think people actually respect that place enough. So they assume that once you are traveling and you go through Soka, going to Iwo Road, that means that every place in Ibadan is brown roof. And even that is not bad. All right? It's not bad. It actually shows evidence of earlier civilization, like when your own fathers were still wearing leaves. These people wearing and living on the thatch roof. These people were already, having corrugated roofing sheets. I found what I'm looking for. Lagos State is about 3,345 to 3,577 square kilometers. Gbogbo Èkó ni o. That's kì í ṣe Èkó ìlú Èkó as in state. It's 3,345 to 3,577 square kilometers. Ibadan City. I was wrong. It's not almost the size, it's bigger. It's between 3,080 to 3,850 square kilometers. It is the largest city in Nigeria and West Africa by land mass. Consists 11 local government areas. Yeah. Ibadan has about 4 million people. Not Oyo State though. Ibadan has about 4 million people. Of course, less than Lagos State. Again, remember we were talking about Lagos State versus Ibadan City. Land mass is bigger than Lagos State. When I say Lagos State, I'm saying Ikorodu, Badagry, Ikeja, Lagos Island, Ekpe, everything put together. So when you have people, when you move through a particular part of that place and you see brown roofs, just know that their children have moved, and that's what happens in Ibadan for the most part. The children will move to the next place. And my dad got to Ibadan in 1960. Okay? Where they were, after a while they moved, then they bought spaces, then they built, then they bought more. They just kept going deeper, and then they buy. So they will have a place and they will buy more places. That's the mindset that you buy. It's the same thing that people do in Ife. It's what they do in Remo. The other day I was in Shagam. I saw the way people were buying land. That's what you do when you have the luxury of land. Okay? The folks who have to destroy stuff to build something else do not appreciate that. That's why they're always shouting, brown roof, brown roof. It's not an insult, really. It's just an acknowledgement of scarcity where they're from and abundance where we live. God bless everybody. All right. Olushola says, Prof, we Yorubas have to change our ways of interacting towards them. So I think we should still love everybody. Just be firm about what you own. Like, it doesn't mean you hate anybody or you want anybody to get out of your land, or because also the thing is we also have to be careful not to allow hate in. How come I say, oh, the bad people don't say, I want to say, no, don't say. The bad people say, hello, will be the one sherry. Where you have, I want to go to Foroko. I don't go to town or go to Bashere. They only fair. When you have that kind of animosity, there is no way your land will progress. Okay, so there's a thin line between, standing up for what's yours and saying this is how things should be done in my place, and going to the extreme. Because the only, and this is a funny thing, the only language they understand is that extreme thing. But when the time for that comes, hopefully it doesn't come, but if it ever comes, I don't think every one of us should have that mindset. I don't come out automatic, but generally speaking, I think you should have a heart of love so that you don't imbibe, you know. But be firm. I can love you and be firm, you know. Like, this is how I want to do things here. Doesn't mean I hate you. That one's different from if you talk, I'll slap you, I'll stab you. That one is extreme. So I believe that Yoruba people need to be more firm, especially the younger ones, because especially with social media, you hear your young Yoruba people speak, and you know that the person talking through him is not Yoruba philosophy or espouse. He's telling you something absolute rubbish. But they think they know. You know how it is. All of us were young. I mean, we are still young, but all of us were teenagers and in our 20s. There was a time when we were like that as well. You think you know everything. So let's give grace to our young ones, but let's try and find a way to teach and say, this is balance. But they also have to see that love from you. So they don't think you are preaching extremism, because they have friends from different ethnicities. That balance, I think, is where the problem really lies. How can I show that I don't hate anybody, but I am actually, you know, preserving what's mine? And it's not difficult. All right. May God help us. Jake's man, this Owe is actually a very good Owe. Nígbà tí mọ́mọ́ wa ti ń ṣoge ìhòòhò ní àkàrà bàbá tí wọ́n ṣọ́mọ́ dárí fún máa fi bàbá síbẹ̀. Ìhòòhò ní àkàrà tí wọ́n wà. But to be fair, àkàrà àwọn bàbá yẹn kan wà ní ìhòòhò nígbà tí mọ́mọ́ ti wá ti ń ṣoge, and it's important to be saying those things lẹ́ẹ̀kọ̀ọ̀kan. Bí wọ́n gbogbo gbàdẹ́ ni. All right, I'm just going to read some more stuff. Today's a bit we just listening to stuff about Yoruba women, and we're talking about it. Tomorrow we're going to go a bit deeper. We're reading some books. We're going to be replaying the conversation that happened in 1955 in Chatham House in London. A speech by John Macpherson, the Governor General of Nigeria, between 48 and 54. We'll be listening to that tomorrow. You're going to like it, okay? But today, let's just quickly do this one. Concilium says military rule stunted Ibadan Western region growth. It actually affected Western region the most. The other day I was watching something about Ibadan. Alawada Sport, Unkatan Babasalashe. I think it's important for Yoruba people to also realize that what Lagos is now was actually what Ibadan was until the 1970s. Ibadan was the place you went if you wanted to break out in entertainment, not Lagos. It had the first TV station on the continent, 1959. That was before France. That was before any part of Africa. That was before many countries in Europe. So if you were in theater, in music and stuff, you wanted to be in Ibadan. People left Lagos for Ibadan. People like Baba Salah, they used to be in Lagos. They moved to Ibadan, although he eventually still had a place in Lagos, but they moved permanently to Ibadan because that was the place. Okay, a lot of things have happened. Thankfully, what's happening, Lagos is also Yoruba land, so we didn't lose anything. But it's important to appreciate, maybe we'll have a conversation about it. People like Orlando Julius, they were in Ibadan. People like Fela would travel to Ibadan almost on a weekly basis. Right? That was Fela's song. You know, all those things, a lot of the gigs they were having in Ibadan at the time, Ibadan was the place to be, you know. And also remember that most of what you call Lagos now was part of Western region, and the capital was in Ibadan until 1967. From 1954 to 1967, everything apart from what we call Lagos, the capital, was part of Western region. So what that meant basically was that the capital attracted people from different parts of the region and even beyond. And because of the many firsts, I mean, one day I drove past, I was in Ibadan, I drove past that place, Okebola, Dugbe, and I saw Femi Johnson, the broken house. I was like, what would make Femi Johnson build something like this back then? An insurance company, a skyscraper, way back then. It was because the center of Kenya was Ibadan. So you moved from Lagos to Ibadan. Of course, university was also in Ibadan. So a lot of things were concentrated in Ibadan. And I think it's important to also appreciate that part of Ibadan as a legacy. I speak so much for Ibadan. I'm not even from Ibadan. But I think Ibadan has caught too much flack. Like, people just say all kinds of rubbish about the place. They have no idea what they're discussing. Only for them when they get like, as someone said, the roads are so nice. Okay, wait, where did you think you were going? Did you think it was like evil forest, Abba? So yeah, Great Time, yes, Kula Lobito, you're right. That was his band, Fala's band. I mean, there's so many things. That was joint for big club, no, ni Kokodome, ni Kokodome. A lot of, some of them are still there. When I visit, I drive around sometimes. It's a beautiful city. Okay, but of course Lagos is a beautiful city. Oshogbo, and I think military actually affected everything. You know, we've left the topic over just gisting. Since I'm responding to people in the comment section, you know, when you think about the traveling theater era in Yoruba land, even though you have people in some cities like in Lagos, in Yaba, you had Baba Ogunde, and then you had other people, low majority, as well as in Ibadan, you had, in Oshogbo, in Ibadan, you had Baba Salah, you had, later on, Nice people came up. In Lagos, you had Adelov, and so on and so forth. And Adeba Salami, and Papa Meru. But in Oshogbo, you had Joladipo, Oyanlejobi, Opo, Ṣàbẹ̀òkúta náà wà Òṣogbo. Àbẹ̀òkúta náà tún náwọn tí wọ́n náà. The point I'm trying to make is that different cities experienced, a kind of growth, not just concentrated in one place, even though Òṣogbo was not capital. So it didn't need to be a capital to be great, even though greatness, of course, will be attracted to the capital naturally, but only Kotonika can contribute. So when Ulebea, for instance, and Adunion Dorisha, that's Susan Wenger, when they were doing their research work, they were in Oshogbo. All right. I think it's important for us to also talk like this so that we don't also assume that everything is just about Lagos. I read somebody's article the other day about how they moved from Lagos to Oshogbo because of electricity. Because Oshogbo man, that we also need to broaden our minds to understand that Lagos is a beautiful place, but it's not all of Yoruba land. All right. Elebuibon, thank you. In Oshogbo, Ajileye in Oshogbo, yes. Thank you. And about 277. Even Nike Art Gallery. She was also in Oshogbo, with her husband at the time. Yoruba history is rich, even recent history, modern history is quite rich. And Lijadu twins, they were in Abeokuta. They are fellas cousins. That family they are blessed. Ajibolo says Ibadan Golf Club. You definitely know Ibadan. I think that place was built in 1907 or something, very early. They have a golf club. They have polo. I think they have 2 golf clubs in Ibadan now. It's also interesting. People actually assume there's one ancient brown roof. Well, they should keep assuming, Sha. It is well. All right. A few more comments before we call it a day. Freeboys Entertainment. Yeah, that's around UI. Agbo. I'll talk about the Pombio. Ajibolo says you will see the municipal buildings amongst the brown roof buildings in Ibadan. Yes. Havana Carnival has been in Ibadan for decades. Yes. Then someone asks a very important question, and I think it's Concilium. No, Dr. Badru. He says, can we ever repeat those feats? Yes, we can. And we will do better. And that's the reason for this platform and others like it. We talk about the past, not just to have nostalgia for a greater yesterday, but so that we can be inspired to build a better today and a much glorious future. A much better future. So we will repeat them. I mean, it's happening. I mean, our fathers did great things, but they didn't build rail lines like Sanwo-Olu just did in Lagos. 2. Blue and red. And there are more to be done. There's green, there's purple. Many more rail lines will be built. There will be rail lines that will connect the entire Southwest region. So we don't talk about this just to say, oh, see those great. Personally, in Ecclesiastes in the Bible says that you shouldn't say, oh, where are the good old days? I like the past, I like history, but it's not so that we can live there and say, oh, see what our fathers did, or we're great. We was kings and queens. I think really it's just to, enlighten us about the past. That it wasn't like we're just roaming the streets naked and hanging on trees. We have a glorious past, but we can also be inspired by that to do something great today and even have a much greater future. So I believe we will, not just that we can, we have to. We actually must. And it has to be in different fields. Some will do it in medicine. The other day I read a report about folks in Obafemi University, they're developing some form of cure for one disease like that. Some people do it in tech, some people do it in medicine, some people do it in art and entertainment. Like we're doing it in art and entertainment right even now. So I think it's when everybody does their own. The government will do their own, the medical people will do their own, the tech folks will do the education folks will do their own, farming, agriculture, tobacco. I'm sure our fathers will look back and say, which I think is what the goal is. Well, personally, but yeah, we will repeat the feats, even do better in Jesus' name. Amen. And I think we should also think about it. There's a girl in the UK, Oshe Asho. Very nice fashion brand. Kilanta, I think that's what it is. Is it Kilanta or something like that? Right? UK Lowa, Omeko, it's not like Yoruba, but that thing also helps project Yoruba heritage. And it goes all the way back to people like Madam Sade Thomas, who was the first, woman to have, first Nigerian to have like runway show in England. Okay, and she's Yoruba. So yeah, we live up to those expectations, and then we'll do better. Like Barolong. Oluwatobiloba says the OAU guy was for sickle cell. Oh, thank you. So if all of us contribute, I think, to be honest, that's the only way to grow now. We can't go back to how Awu did it back then. It's not going to work. It's not going to work anymore. We are looking for this democratic socialism where the government's actually very involved in starting businesses and all those businesses that Western region had at the time. Ashok Balanda Fungba. Nísìnyí báyìí tí government bá ní proper tó bá ní business gan, if government has okòwò tó máa lókòwò gan sọ máa sọ fún pé ẹ wá aládàáni tó máa mójútó, wọ́n bá ti pawó wọ́n á mú díẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ wọ́n á kó àwọn kan wọ́n á dá yòókù sínú àsùnwọ̀n ìjọba. But the idea that we're going to do everything exactly like how we did, that's not going to happen. But can we surpass what they did? Absolutely, I believe so. And from what we're seeing, we will. Agbarolo. Oluwatobiloba says, Oluwatobi Tobias, my dad is a great owl guy. Mine too. Thank you. Atirojo Jeka Amaloleo. Don't worry, tomorrow's session is going to be a bit longer in terms of what we're going to be listening to, and I'm sure you're going to like it. Dr. Badu says we need to score more first. I agree with you 100%. And again, let's also use this opportunity to encourage ourselves. It's not about government should do this, government should do that. It's based on what all of us contribute. So if you see a gap, at the level to pay, we'll wait for our Lord to come and build Nigerite or build Ascapint. We're in 2026. We have more people. The population is bigger, and the taxes are not as much as our got back in his days. Just to be clear, what our got to do for education was mostly, taxes. All right, and these days it is well. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think for our generation, it is what everybody contributes that helps the place grow. So if you see any need in Nigeria, particularly in Yoruba land, In Olo and Shio Alojuemi, you find one or two people that you can talk to and you can start something. It's basically entrepreneurship now, more than government patronage. And of course, government has their own role, but in Kotanwa, it will be more along the lines of the men who built America. I've been talking about that series for a while now. I hope people have watched it. Please watch it at some point. But one weekend, I'll just do one watch party like they do on TikTok. I'll just play it. I'm still thinking about how to organize that so that folks on YouTube can also watch. People just have that. People need to watch the men who built America. I think that's the only way you can build Nigeria. And if you think I'm just saying it, that's exactly what's happening with Dangote. What Dangote is doing, that's how they built America. The rail lines were built primarily by individuals, right? Vanderbilt, right? And then you had, the guys that went to refineries, starting with Rockefeller and so on and so forth. In business, in financial, JP Morgan. In electricity, of course, you have Thomas Edison, you have Michael Ford in automobiles. I'm just saying basically that where we are right now, yes, Carnegie was in steel. Think about it, when they were taking I remember that scene when they had to take an elephant to walk over that bridge just to prove that it was sturdy. Think about that kind of thing. Carnegie Loche is steel. We were waiting for Jakarta to work. There's some things that you watch some of this and you're like, it's not about saying that claim. It's about just thinking straight. We are waiting for Jakarta. I mean, if Awo became president, Jakarta will be, even if it's not Jakarta, but there will be a steel plant in Nigeria. At least one. You have electricity. All of those things will be sorted because you'd have created a plan, just like Tinubu did in Lagos. But in the absence of that, we may have to go the American way, which is individuals will find opportunities and take advantage of it and build entire industries on those things. By the time they had antitrust issues with John D. Rockefeller and broke standard into, I think, 4, each group don't break a single shares. So I think it's going to bring you wealth if you're able to find solutions to our problems, and also help our land to develop so that we can move away from the sinner climb argument. That thing irks me. But please, I'm not even one of the people that produced it. I just think it's going to inspire us. If you can, you will find it on YouTube. I've also searched for it on YouTube. It's on YouTube. But I'll find a way to do a watch party one of these. I don't know when. But if you can't wait, please look for the men who built America. Hopefully it will inspire you. Even if what you are doing is selling rice. There's a guy, item 7 on They said in Ilorin. Now he's in Lagos, he's in Ibadan. He has so many outlets all over the place. The way he's moving is like McDonald's. He's just opening franchises all over the place. So may God bless us. May God bless Yorùbá land. May God bless Nigeria. Okay, I think we've had a great time. And I think we did that because I intentionally muted the one that was insulting people on YouTube. Because somebody came out dying alone. Martima Soro Tunida. Tabade Soko Soja Rale Lumaba. Allow on to everyone up with the idea. To the Tonja Ibo. So that's the reason. By the way, if the person is here, I muted you earlier because you were just being a nuisance. But may God bless you and your family. Koboko says, not everything is Afro beats and comedy skits. We can just be that now. There's nothing wrong with Afrobeat. Afrobeat is also good now. Let's keep pushing. I mean, we're international already, aren't we? We're global. We're global now. So it's okay to have Afrobeat, I think. And films, right? By the way, shameless plug again. It's Tuesday, but I want to advertise something. Please, if you can, check out Kunle Afolahyan's father's movie. Iyaniwura was made in 1984, but they put it out recently. I watched it with my family. It was good. At least, somebody went on Twitter and said the first scene just threw him off. I'm like, give grace now. It was 40 years ago. I mean, they did well for that time. There's no private jet. So if you have the time, find time, please, and just you support. I think it's also a way to keep the memory, the legacy alive. And hopefully, if a lot of people watch it, they'll put out other videos like Taxi Driver and the other ones. And hopefully, the Ogunde family will also see this and do something similar with Ayamo and Naye and Jai Simi. Because I come out one kind of television Ẹkáàbọ. So I'm advert lórí TV ni. Mo wá lọ wò lórí ní cinema. Ọpẹ́ ẹ̀rù máa bà wá. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. Great Time says one man played two roles, a feat in 1984. Yeah, I remember on Twitter, somebody said twins, film T Ramsey no Ashe. Someone said that was the first time. So Gabriel had to write on Twitter like no, that his father did it first, 1984. It was actually 1983, but the movie was released in 84. That's 42 years ago. Joe. And by the way, his movie was one of the first, was actually the first Yoruba movie to be produced. I think that was Ajani Ogun in 1977. Right? It was directed by Ola Balogun. You know, that's what they love. That's even before Baba Ogunde now got into filmmaking. I mean, these are, legacies that we have to keep alive. And hopefully we're also going to listen to many things from Ola Balogun. He's one of the major pioneers of Nigerian film industry. Someone says Arokuntenio. That's Ogunde now. Desili says it was celluloid. Yes, it was celluloid. It was celluloid. And I like, so, you know, you know, when we were growing up, there was this story that we heard that Baba Ogunde was like, nobody in his family should ever convert his movie to VHS and stuff like that. When I grew up and I listened to the family talk about it, I understand exactly what he was saying. You see, VHS at the time was cheap, was fast, and it democratized movie production. It made it very easy. But the mistake I think people made at the time, and it wasn't so much their fault, it was also the economy. It's like they could have created a dichotomy like they did in US, where you have the major filmmakers and then you have the independent makers, the indie films. Some of the indie films could have afforded to use, you know, camcorders and stuff to make movies. The problem where I'm going with all these things is that when you look at Yaniwura from 1984, it's still really cool. Like they were able to do the color grading and upgrade, digitalize it. It still looks nice. But on top fee VHS Shengba yen ko dabi. Someone said Ajanogun was 1976. Thank you. Yes, Ajanogun was 1976. Then I think he now did the Jaominera. Maybe that one is 77 or 78. But thank you for that. Jaominera is 79. Thank you. Are you our resident dictionary and date calendars? But thank you. So I want to officially Lloyd saying by digitalize and see or boy digitize and see or you on it. Boy digitize and see oh sharp, oh it looks nice. But I want to VHS saying by it was quick, it was it was good at the time, but it's very very YouTube cooking dabi and let the man do me. Thank you, Great Time, for the date. Oh man, do me pay our movie. You there can to the other day. I just said that we're going to watch Owo Blue. Watch part 1, part 2, part 3. I mean, see, even if the quality is not so good, I just want to have that feeling. I enjoyed watching it. All our veterans and all those people that did fantastic work, and may God bless all of us. Final comment on Facebook. This comment is fire. 1 second. Thank you very much, Mr. Godwin Ojebi. It's a very important thing you've written, and I hope that Yoruba people, particularly Yoruba men, will be more intentional when it comes to marriage. I've said it several times. There's nothing wrong with inter-ethnic marriages, but if you're a man and you know that you cannot handle the woman you are bringing into that marriage, just stay. You can't handle that person from that ethnicity. Just stay at home, okay? I mean, it's marriage is hard enough without all this cultural supremacy nonsense where a person intentionally denigrates Yoruba culture to find relevance. Marriage is hard enough. Raising children is hard enough. Than to now raise kids that are confused. They have to now pick and choose between their father or their mother instead of them to be able to have both, which I think is the beauty of inter-ethnic marriages. I don't have an inter-ethnic marriage, so I don't know how it works, but I have a mentor who does. And of course, there's a lot of give and take. But the kids are not raised to denigrate or hate their father's ethnicity. And because of the most part, Yoruba men, it is well with us. And don't be marrying people on the basis of one Nigeria. You will suffer and the suffering is not about even you. It's about the confusion you're going to give to your children. Because all these people that Yoruba marry from Edo, we marry Hausa, we marry Tiv, Idoma, Igala, Ibibio, Efik. We marry is one group. Once you marry there like this, it's as if you have to Morile Kolo Morunwa. You have to change your history to make them feel comfortable. It's a crazy thing. And I'm not saying all people that marry from that place have that problem, but the reason really is because of the culture of where the person is coming from. And I'll just say this as we end. I'm trying to respond to what the person typed without having to read everything. Here's the thing. If you want to marry in certain places, I think beyond what your third leg is doing as a man, your penis, beyond your penis, and you should sit down and ask yourself, these people I want to go and marry, how do they marry where they come from? This is not about whether something is good or bad. Just ask yourself, what you discover is that in their own culture, they do research. They send somebody to the wife's house. They want to know their social status. They want to know everything. It's not about speaking in tongues or Bible. They want to actually understand how the person moves in society. They ask all the relevant questions. You are the one just shouting, we are all one Nigeria. They don't do that where they come from. They are very intentional about researching, right? They will go and ask questions. This person, where is the family? Who are the father? Who is the father? Who is the mother? Where is family are they from? Are they this? Are they that? What particular caste are this? They ask all those questions. And no matter how emotionally charged the young men and women are, once they discover that researching or the you just between one nation, you have children, your children cannot go to their mother's place because they'll be considered inferior. It's not just about sex. It's about culture. And if you don't mind, at least you are doing it based on knowledge. Like you can, let's say you've done your research or you now discover what the issue is, at least you know what you're getting yourself into. Not just that you get married to somebody that will now come and be insulting Yoruba women. Can you imagine the wife of a former governor insulting Yoruba women, saying that Yoruba women used to stay, just talking rubbish? Somebody in her 70s. What there be more? And that person has Yoruba children, so to speak. How do you think those kids will be raised? May God bless the children. I'm sure, they are adults, so they'll be able to decide. But the point is, don't confuse your children. Like, help the next generation. And let your penis stop thinking for you, Yoruba men. God bless you. And Yoruba women to, make things easy for your men. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. I want to call it a day now before we go into other things. All right, folks on YouTube, on Facebook, and on TikTok, thanks so much for your presence and for your support today. Thanks for power tapping. Thanks for the comments. I think I read as many comments as possible, and that was really cool. So thank you. Tomorrow we'll be here at 4 p.m. We're discussing political history tomorrow. Political history. We're going to delve into many things. So you're going to enjoy it. Deep stuff, okay? Dan, thank you very much for the hearts. I really appreciate it. We're going to go into some really deep stuff tomorrow. We had a session about it last week, but the videos are going up tonight. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to them tomorrow. So, by the way, please engage our content on all social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and also on Spotify. So there's Busui Oris on Spotify now. Please check out that channel. We have some videos that we've not put as many as we have on YouTube, but you have enough to just enjoy and learn. And the beautiful thing about Spotify is you could be driving and listening, you could be doing another thing and listening without having to watch on YouTube. So please take advantage of this materials. God bless you. I want to thank everybody who has supported us. All the gifters on TikTok, thank you very much for your generosity. And for our supporters on all platforms, thank you very much for your kindness. I'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. if your time West African time. But before we go, we are going to listen to our anthems. First will be the Nigerian anthem, then the Yorùbá anthem. Let's sing along if you know the lyrics. If not, by this time, 2026, we got some more lyrics I want to hear, but if you don't, please try and learn. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Court has given an injunction.
Mombo, there's something I was playing earlier. Just a second, please. Good.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land, though tribe and
àwa ní ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀ ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ní wọ́ọ̀kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́ o, Nàìjíríà náà ò ní bàjẹ́, ilé wa ọ̀nà wa ò ní bàjẹ́. Ọlọ́run á fi oyin àti ayọ̀ tó pọ̀ àti adùn tó pọ̀ sí ayé wa lágbára Ọlọ́run. May God bless Nigeria. May God bless Yorùbá land. May God bless you and yours. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. I will see you again tomorrow for in-depth political history going back to 1955. That will be tomorrow, so please join us early. We'll start playing music on TikTok at 4, and they'll bring us in much later. See you tomorrow. Have a lovely evening. God bless you. Odaro.